whenever there's trouble, G.I. Joe is there. G.I. Joe, real American hero. G.I. Joe is there.
Hello everyone, welcome to the latest episode of the Space Monkey X Audio Workshop presents Generation Toon. This is your host, Rob Lamley. Here on Generation Toon, we have three generations of cartoon fans. My wife Andrea, a millennial, our daughter Harper, a Gen Z kid, and me, a Gen Xer, and we talk about the animated shows that have helped shape who we are today. Last time it was Harper's pick with Gravity Falls, which means it's my turn again, and I went with a classic series from the 1980s, G.I. Joe, a real American hero. Along with shows like He-Man, Transformers, and many others, G.I. Joe was created for one reason and one reason only, to sell toys. Before about 1983, the Federal Communications Commission had strict rules about television advertising aimed at children. But with the Reagan administration, those rules were loosened and a flood of cartoons with toy line tie-ins hit the market. Was it ethical? Maybe not. But many of those cartoons have become cultural icons for kids from that era, and many of them are still going strong today, including G.I. Joe. Before we get started, there's one thing I forgot to mention during our discussion, and that's the influence G.I. Joe had on cartoon storytelling. Because most cartoons at the time were only shown on Saturdays, the stories were usually self-contained episodes, so kids didn't have to wait a week before seeing how the story ends. There were the occasional two-parters, but they were few and far between. But because G.I. Joe was syndicated and ran nearly every afternoon in most television markets, this gave the writers the freedom to come up with multi-episode storylines. Not only did this give them the opportunity to come up with more complex stories, it also had the added benefit of making sure the kids came back tomorrow to see the next chapter. G.I. Joe actually kicked off with a 5-part proof-of-concept miniseries called The Mass Device, and then over the course of 2 seasons would feature 3 more miniseries of 5 episodes each. These multi-episode stories rarely connected for a larger, overarching storyline beyond the miniseries, but using their syndication format to keep kids coming back every day is clearly reflected in the on-demand, bingeable serialized cartoons that are so common today. For this edition of Generation Toon, we watched 4 episodes of G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero. First up was Season 1, Episode 16, Countdown to Zartan. Zartan is sent by COBRA Commander to sabotage an anti-terrorism conference at the World Defense Center. Can the Joes find the bomb he's hidden before the building explodes? Season 1, Episode 22, The Funhouse. COBRA kidnaps a group of scientists to lure the Joes to a trap-filled funhouse that could spell their doom. Season 1, Episode 39, The Viper is Coming. After receiving phone calls laced with coded messages from a man who calls himself the Viper, the Joes battle COBRA to discover the identity of this mysterious benefactor. And Season 2, Episode 10, Once Upon a Joe. When a battle with COBRA accidentally destroys an orphanage, the Joes team up to rebuild the kids' home. While taking a break from work, Shipwreck gets roped into telling the kids a fairy tale. And with that, let's get to our discussion of
G.I. Joe!
Welcome back to Generation Toon. This is Rob, the Gen Xer.
Andrea, the Zennial, I guess is where we've decided.
Yeah, Millennial Zennial.
Yeah.
Harper, the Gen Z.
And this time it was my choice, and I went with G.I. Joe, a Real American Hero.
Yay!
A real American problem.
Yeah. A real American show.
Okay. As usual, a few little notes here just to start. G.I. Joe, the cartoon, was based on the toy line that was introduced in 1982, which was, of course, based on the old toy line from the 1960s. It was produced in a smaller format instead of the original 12-inch because the price of oil had skyrocketed in the coming years. And so it was...
Their version of skyrocketed.
Well, yeah, that's fair.
I guess I'm crying in $3.29 a gallon.
I want to say the price of a barrel of oil in the 60s was $16, and then by 1980, when they started to kind of kick this idea around, it was up to $44.
Oh.
I know, but I mean,
no.
that is a big difference. So anyway, they made them smaller. The toy line was introduced in 1982. It was actively sold until 1994. So, I mean, it lasted a long time.
Dang.
But I outlived it. And we're the same age, so...
That's true. I didn't think about that.
I'm still winning.
I don't know about that, because the show's still on. There's still comics. There's still toys. Anyway.
I'm still breathing.
That's true, you are.
Spoiler alert, this one's gonna end weird.
The first year's sales projections for the toy line were 12 to 15 million, and it actually sold about 50 million.
Alright,
so
fine, it won.
It was a big, it was a big hit. The comic book was released by Marvel Comics in 1982, and it ran until 1994 for 155 issues. Now, the reason I mentioned the comic book is because those two, the toy and the comic, are closely linked. When G.I. Joe came out, you couldn't really do cartoons for toy lines on TV. In fact, there were even heavily regulated commercials that you couldn't do certain things for toys during, regular Saturday mornings. So Hasbro's idea was to come out with a comic book that would be their kind of media that they could glom onto to sell the toys, all coming from Star Wars, because that was what sold the Star Wars toys were the movies. So their idea was to do a comic book, and the comic was huge. It was the first few issues sold out through multiple printings. By 1985, it was the top-selling subscription comic from Marvel, beating out things like X-Men and Spider-Man and big titles.
For quite a while.
And they were receiving 1,200 fan letters a week by 1987.
But I wonder if that's just thinking about the timing. I mean, so was it doing well as the comic because you have the people who grew up with the 12-inch dolls are now having children?
That's entirely possible.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Going in cycles again,
But
like we're seeing now.
I think it also just has a lot to do with the toys. I
Sure.
mean, the toys were huge, as I said before. By 1986, it was selling 331,500 issues every month. So it was a pretty darn good selling comic. So since Hasbro didn't have a cartoon or a movie or anything like that they could tie the toy line to, they tied it to the comic books. And Marvel had the brilliant idea of actually advertising the comic book on television, which was the first time anyone had ever done that. And what they did was they had little animated segments, which we watched, some of the compilation, for the ads for the comic book. And so it was kind of a little teaser, like, this is what a G.I. Joe cartoon would be like. Well, in 1984...
It worked.
1983... the Hasbro produced a miniseries for G.I. Joe, the cartoon, to kind of introduce it. I believe it was 5 or 6 episodes, and it was all done through syndication, so it wasn't done on Saturday mornings, which meant that the FCC didn't regulate the cartoons or the advertising quite as much because it could be done, they could show it any time. So most television stations showed the cartoon, the miniseries, after school. And that's kind of when G.I. Joe found its time slot. Like, when I watched it, that was the only time it was ever on, was after school.
It was after school during the week.
Yeah. And so, by 1984, the FCC had pretty much taken out all of their restrictions. And so, comics, or cartoons as toy advertisement was, like, the main...
The norm.
Yeah, it was the norm.
Yeah.
In fact, I have a little note here. By 1984, or within a year... so about 1985, the top 10 selling toys all had cartoons. So it was just what you did now. So I mean, that was a really big deal. The fact that these were cartoons advertising toys, and it was the first time it had really been done, and it was obviously a huge success. You've got Transformers, He-Man, G.I. Joe, all of these toy lines that are still being made today. If you look around my room, my office,
your office,
you're going to find that they were all key to being this new wave of cartoons as advertising.
They're also like well-known names and everything that like even people in my generation know just because of how popular they were.
Yeah, I mean they're still hanging around.
Like before we even watched G.I. Joe, I know you mentioned it, and like I've seen people talk about it and make references to it that sure I didn't understand, but I knew what it was.
Well, it doesn't hurt that there have been 3 movies based on G.I. Joe.
Really?
2009's The Rise of Cobra, 2013's Retaliation, and then just this last year, Snake Eyes, G.I. Joe Origins from 2021. So it's been in the pop culture realm. The cartoon ran for 2 years for a total of 95 episodes. It was produced by Marvel Productions in cooperation with Sunbow Productions. Sunbow wrote the scripts, Marvel did the storyboards, and the animation was done by Toei in Japan. The comics and the cartoon were very different animals. They didn't really have much to do with each other other than some of the main characters and obviously all the toys and the ships and vehicles and everything.
Everything sold separately.
Yeah, exactly. The personalities were very different. I mainly read the comic. As you know, I had the entire run of Marvel Comics at one point, and then we lost them when our basement flooded. Yeah, it was one of the most devastating days of my life.
And how?
And so I mainly read the comics. I read them over and over and over again. Whereas I would watch the cartoon again whenever I came home from school. When I caught it. It wasn't like it was a major touchstone for me.
Now, for anyone who might be younger, when you caught it means that you actually had to turn on your television and hope it was on TV.
And be there at the right time.
On demand.
Right. The comic was written 100% by Larry Hama. And then he did a lot of the artwork as well, but he pretty much got the okay from Hasbro to do whatever he wanted as long as he showed the latest vehicles and playsets and characters and toys that were being introduced. So he did that, and so he created a lot of...
So his content was then dictated by probably by the cartoon/toy line, because...
It was dictated by the toy line.
But wasn't also the cartoon dictated by the toy line too?
Yes. And so you would see a lot of the same characters, but they wouldn't have the same personalities.
No. I'm just thinking, but they're all driving the same cars.
Oh, absolutely.
They're all driving the same tank.
Exactly. The big difference is you can produce a comic a lot faster than you can in any episode of a cartoon.
Right, and that I understand.
So Larry could come out with, the newest vehicles and characters and everything a lot faster than the cartoon could. Mm-hmm. The only thing that he really didn't want to have anything to do with was after G.I. Joe the movie in 1987, when they completely revamped the entire backstory of, like, COBRA, the ruthless terrorist organization determined to rule the world that G.I. Joe fights.
You have that burned in your brain.
I do. I could say that entire thing from the intro because I said it every time the cartoon was on. Anyway, when...
Sold separately.
Yes. When the movie came out, they introduced this idea of Cobra Law, which was like this fantastical, mythical place where Cobra came from. And Larry was like, I'm not doing that. So...
I mean, yeah,
it doesn't exist.
You kind of just kind of squashed on his backstory,
and that's exactly
he's like, what the?
And so he just was like, I'm not doing that. You're just gonna have to deal with that. Right. And at that point, he had the #1 selling comic, and he was, they were like, all right, whatever. Yeah. Aside from the cartoon that we watched, there have been multiple cartoon series for G.I. Joe. There was one in 1989 to 1991, which is the same characters and the same toy lines and everything to some extent, but it was produced by Deke, which we've talked about before. They did, I think. I think they did Real Ghostbusters.
Maybe.
Anyway, at that time, Hasbro was mostly paying for all of the cartoons when the original G.I. Joe cartoon was on, but Deke came in and said, like, hey, can we just license it and we'll pay for the cartoon? So Hasbro was like, sure, why not? Well, unfortunately, it sucked. Most of the Joe fans don't give a crap about it. Only ran for 44 episodes. Nobody really cares. Then in 1995, there was G.I. Joe Extreme. It ran for 2 seasons of 26 episodes. Yeah, I know.
Was it a letter X and then T?
No, unfortunately, but you should see it. It is 90s. Yeah, just 90s.
I would dare to say, is it radical?
It is.
Oh, no.
Then in 2005, there were 26 episodes of G.I. Joe Sigma 6. In 2009, there was G.I. Joe Resolute, which was an online series, but it was aimed more at an adult audience, and it aired on Adult Swim. And then in 2020, G.I. Joe Renegades had 26 episodes. It aired on The Hub, where Harper used to watch My Little Pony and Littlest Pet Shop and stuff like that. So it was aimed more at kids.
Yeah, it was all Hasbro property.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
yes.
That literally is all Hasbro. I just realized that.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of the breakdown of the history of G.I. Joe toys and comics and cartoons. And we watched, how many episodes?
4?
We watched 4 episodes.
Yes, we did.
We watched Countdown to Zartan. We watched The Viper is Coming.
Oh my god.
We watched Once Upon a Joe. And then we watched The Funhouse.
Gotta be honest, Once Upon a Joe was my favorite. I don't know why. I think it was just because it played with the art style.
Isn't that the one with all of the... Of course he had an orphanage.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that one first then. So Once Upon a Joe tells the story of the Joes destroying an orphanage through...
By accident.
Yeah, by accident. During a fight with Cobra over the MacGuffin device.
They really did hone down on these kids being orphans because they kept reminding them, oh, we're just poor little orphans.
Right.
Nobody
cares
no
about
family.
orphans. Nobody tells bedtime stories to orphans.
Orphans,
Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
it was constantly
It was
drilled into
really
us.
trying to make the Joes like seem like, oh, they were trying. They're helping these poor orphans.
But in that one, Shipwreck sits down with all the kids and he starts telling them a story about Ship Shape and
I love Shipwreck.
his
He's hilarious.
why do you like Shipwreck, Harper?
It's because it's very obvious. A lot of these characters are gay. Okay, a lot of them.
She can say it. She is one. It's okay.
She literally, it's a show about army soldiers. Of course, there are gonna be some of them. I'm just like, you two.
Was it the fact that his neckline started in
Yes.
his navel?
Yeah. The 1980s were very macho man.
And they wonder why there were so many gay people around.
Yeah, that was a pretty goofy episode, but it was also pretty creative for a kids show, especially one that's supposed to be all about boys' adventures, and then they
Yeah.
tell this fairy tale story.
The cartoon style I was really interested in because it really really shifted from the original style, and B, it really did reminisce of kids cartoons and everything.
And that's definitely what they were going for.
Yeah.
Now keep in mind I'm reaching here, but so were they on some of this stuff. But aren't they, by taking care of the orphanage, automatically better than both Superman and Batman, who destroyed an entire city and did not clean up after their mess?
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
I mean,
Isn't that?
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah,
Oh,
just
yeah.
one more tick in the Marvel column
Oh,
versus
no.
There we go.
the more I'm thinking about this episode, for a show that really liked to spend its budget on the fight and the explosions,
Man,
and
the explosions were amazing on
they
the show.
were,
Yeah.
and they were, but it was all over so quickly and was literally a show about union breaks. It was just every 5 minutes we're sitting down and talking to a bunch of people.
Yeah, it was a weird episode, but it was fun.
Also, I liked how in that episode the big tough guy who's trying to
Leatherneck.
Oh my god.
What?
Let's just get it out there. Let's get it out there.
Okay.
New game with G.I. Joe.
Oh, yes, okay. This is something we actually did.
Yes, we did, because you can take
yeah.
most names out of G.I. Joe, plug it into Urban Dictionary. You don't have to scroll far for for filthy.
Yeah.
Snow job.
Airtight.
Airtight.
Trust us, folks. Do not look up airtight on Urban Dictionary.
I'm now
Or
traumatized.
Or do. Live your life. I can't tell you what to do.
Every time I hear snow job now, I start giggling hysterically.
Well, so did we. I was in 6th grade. We thought it was hilarious.
Right? Right.
They really
What else do we... Okay, and then we also have the, hyper stereotype. We've got,
Yes. Spirit.
Oh.
Spirit. And...
Storm Shadow.
Wait.
Oh.
Wasn't Spirit... What was Spirit's eagle's name?
Freedom.
Yeah. And then Barbecue. He was the
What?
He was the Boston Fire Department guy. He's the firefighter.
The firefighter's name was Barbecue?
Yeah. You didn't catch that?
You didn't see that?
You mean the firefighter / arsonist's name was Barbecue?
Oh, yeah.
The thing
Okay.
about
Okay, no, I just want you to go down this list now. I'm listening. Go on.
Who else
do we have?
I don't know.
I mean, literally going into this, I knew Cobra, Sergeant Slaughter. That's all I know about G.I. Joe when we started this.
for me,
I'm amazed Snake Eyes is not in the Urban Dictionary. That just feels like it's got to be something, but
I know
It's
Snake.
just
I know
not.
Snake Eyes is a casino term. Whenever
the
you.
dice.
Oh, yes, it
yeah,
is.
That's
Yes,
all
it
it
But
came
that's
up.
the only time that I've heard Snake Eyes.
Come on, give me more.
I
What else?
don't know off the top of my head. I don't have the whole.
All right.
I don't have them all memorized.
Shipwreck,
Alpine.
Alpine.
He was one
Shipwreck's
of
a
them.
sailor, obviously.
I mean, a lot of the Cobra guys don't have normal names. They're like Destro.
What was the guy's
Right.
guy with long hair's name? He was the main villain of. He was one of the villains for Cobra. He worked with Cobra.
Is he the one who could change his?
Yes, the diamonds.
Zartan.
Zartan.
Yeah.
Zartan.
And-
rocking the crop top.
Yeah, all the.
When he was wearing a shirt.
Yeah, I was gonna say, those are the Dreadnoks, and they,
Oh, yeah.
they were
Also-
all like that. They all were very
buff.
Mad Max, Road Warrior type looking.
They
Well,
were
they're from
American gladiators.
they're from
Yeah.
Australia, so that's kind of the influence.
Oh.
Yeah. That's why they all had the mohawks and the spiked hair. And
Again, they wonder why there were so many gay people around.
Well,
You're gonna make these buff,
There's
hot men.
There's always
There's
been
gonna
a lot
be
of
some.
gay people been around forever, but
The 80s.
the 80s,
a lot of shirtless men trying to be very macho. That was the 1980s.
Yeah, someday we want you to Google Zubas.
Oh no. That already sounds bad. I don't want
Their pants. And
Their
they're
pants.
horrible. They're
That
horrible.
doesn't make it sound better, does it?
No.
There you go.
Okay, so that was
Anyways.
kind of Once Upon a Joe. The next one we kind of talked about barbecue and the Viper is coming, which I'm telling you, I know, you both sighed very heavily when we came to the end of that episode. But I guarantee you, if you said the Viper is coming to anyone my age, they know exactly what you're talking about.
Yes, I know.
It is
We're
just
well
so
aware.
ingrained in our
Here's
Gen
the
X
thing.
memory.
It is cheesy and awful and terrible. I kind of love it. Like that's the thing.
It's like an angry upvote. It's
is
like, you know what?
absolutely
I
an
gotta
angry
give you
upvote. It's
props
like,
because you just spent 23 minutes on a dad joke.
Correct.
And, you know,
But as we're finding out, as we watch more and more of these cartoons from, our
era.
that has influenced us and the dad joke and the fact that we love the dad joke.
For sure.
Oh, so this cartoon is the reason why you two
Not
are
this
the way
one.
You are.
No.
A lot
Maybe
of
me.
them.
Mainly this one.
Yeah. Keep in mind, this cartoon started when
she
I
was
did.
born. Yeah.
Yes. The same year I was born.
So yes, the Viper is coming was a touchstone
I kind of
episode
I
for some
gotta
reason.
be honest, I did kind of like start to think that it wasn't going to be as epic as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
Because like they already blew up most of Cobra's brains.
Yeah. Went to what, like 4 different things that
Didn't they go to
exploding?
like a place where like the
It was
Cobras
like a Cobra spa.
Yeah,
at
it was
one
like
point.
it was in the Arctic and it was their
all these
Cobra.
army men were just like wearing short shorts and
Oh,
like
that was the
Oh,
best.
yes, because it was like from the neck down, dad on vacation.
Yeah.
From the neck up, Cobra business as usual.
Yeah, they still had their helmets on, like in the pool.
Yes.
And in the mess hall.
Yes.
That was great.
Like I want just a walking tour of that facility.
I know, yeah.
With people getting massages, still wearing
their helmets.
and
well, I mean, you gotta be ready for whenever something happens.
Well, and look what happened.
Yeah.
They got attacked.
They got attacked, and I honestly felt kind of bad when it turned out to be a dad joke the entire time. I'm just like, oh, those poor Cobra guys. They just wanted to relax in the spa. They got blown up by these guys that they didn't even know what they were talking about.
But, I mean, you gotta admit, it was a pretty exciting episode. You know, I mean...
I have...
It was
like,
basically
I have
the entire...
every problem and 0 problems with it.
Because, I mean, the ending battle where they're in, like, the Cobra headquarters where they're, like, fighting on the side of the skyscraper and everything.
The entire...
That was pretty cool
That entire
for a kid's
episode,
cartoon.
you can just say sold separately.
Yeah, well, yes,
For
that's
the
true, too.
for everything that
Well,
they
yeah,
had.
because it's not, get to the ships. It's get to the whatever the name.
Get to the Sky Strikers.
Yes,
exactly.
exactly.
Yeah. And that's how the entire series was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Always name dropping.
Of course.
Yeah. But I mean, when we were kids, the Viper is coming was a mind-blowing twist for us, and we just thought it was the funniest thing ever. So again, touchstone episode for us.
Burned into your memories.
It very much is. Then we watched the Fun House,
That was cool.
which is
Which I need refresher.
This is the one where the Joes end up in like the pyramid that is nothing but like silly traps that Cobra Commander has set up. Like there's robot Cobra Commanders that are going running around. There's balloons that have hallucinogenic in them.
Right.
And basically they do everything they can to like separate the Joes from their groups of 2 that they went out in, and there's only one person who keeps going.
Right.
And
this is the one with the girl.
yes.
There's one girl.
I think it was Scarlet, was that? Or was that Lady... No, Lady J's in that one. Lady J.
The Sigourney Weaver, obviously
Yeah,
looking
I think
one.
so, yeah.
Ripley looking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just kind of a perfect distillation of the show, because Cobra Commander never had good plans. They were always goofy, and much like a Bond villain, they couldn't just outright shoot the Joes that they captured. They had to do some silly thing to, So it was
Doofenshmirtz, the beta release.
Yes, exactly. So, so I think
I hate that you're right.
So that's kind of why I chose that episode, just because it is goofy and silly and just kind of everything that the G.I. Joe cartoon was.
It
in that episode.
It really showed that this show was just full of himbos and just one girl who was trying to keep them all.
Lady J, Scarlet, CoverGirl didn't really have much of a show. Yeah, I know.
Was she blonde?
No, but she was really pretty. She was the prettiest one on the Joes.
Of course.
Yeah,
Yeah,
even
she
though
always talked
Scarlet
about it.
and Lady J are nothing to, shake a stick
Yeah,
at.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like anything else from the 80s, Barbie, all of these women are drawn to where if they were real, they would have to be 8 feet tall and walk on all fours because of the proportions.
Yeah.
Sorry, you were talking about the ladies.
Oh, on this show, the ladies were always the smart ones, just like, in real life. The guys
You're
would
not
have
wrong.
the guys would have some harebrained scheme, or they'd do something stupid, and it would have to be Scarlet or most likely Lady J. She was kind of the main one on the cartoon.
Yeah.
She would step in and take care of things. So, yeah, just like real life. Then the other one we watched was Countdown to Zartan. The reason I showed this one to you guys is because I found a commercial that directly tied us to Zartan. And remember, because in the very end of this episode, he ends up in the sun, and and he turns purple, and the sun hurts him because he's very sensitive to the sun.
Right.
And it's not explained at all in the cartoon. It's just this happens. He gets into the sunlight, he turns purple, and he screams.
I mean,
And
that
why
happens
didn't they
in
turn
cartoons.
it into a PSA about using sunblock? I
That's
don't
true, I
know. Come on.
So then what I found was a commercial that tied directly to Zartan, and it explained everything. That if you put the toy in the sun, his skin would change tones. So he would go from a normal white guy to kind of like this dark purple thing. And so it was explained in the commercial, but not in the cartoon. So it was just kind of the perfect. Here it is as an advertisement.
Was it Countdown to Zartan when we first met Spirit?
Yes.
And the ninja? I don't even.
Storm Shadow.
Yeah. They started
God, I
fighting, and we
love
both just kind of went, look, the racist stereotypes are fighting.
Wait. No, we now have to address the guess where they're from accents.
Yes.
The accents are all over the place. in
Yes.
They
this.
could be, yes.
Yes, in the 80s, it's good that
it's
they were
wonderful
trying
that
and that
they
they
had
added those
everyone there.
characters. However,
Oh my god.
that did not age well.
No. In the
That
80s,
should just be the subtitle of this whole series.
Exactly.
it's probably true, yeah.
That did not age well.
Generation Tune. That didn't age well.
The thing is, and I've said this before with you guys, but G.I. Joe was actually very representative
yeah.
of other races. I don't want to say cultures. I want to say races.
They barely showed different
Because
cultures.
yeah, exactly. They were all based on stereotypes.
Correct.
But they had a Native American. They had multiple Asian folks. Not all of them were ninjas, but some of them were.
This isn't helping your case.
But that was the 80s.
And there were several black soldiers and everything.
Yeah,
so.
that.
Yep. And again, not all of them, unlike Roadblock, who did actually rap every once in a while, most of them did not rap their lines.
The rest of them just played
Forgot
basketball.
about the rhyming.
Roadblock only did that sometimes, and that was only in the cartoon, as I recall. I don't think he ever did that in the
best
comic.
thing that would ever happen. Now I just want to see someone make a G.I. Joe parody of him continuing to talk and rhyme and everyone getting annoyed as shit.
While they're pinned down by gunfire. And he's
Right.
still...
They're like, is this really the time for that?
Honestly, in any cartoon where they're making jokes, I always want I know they're not going to do it, but I always want the cartoon characters to just go, is this really the time?
Yeah.
Can you just stop?
Yes.
Yeah. So anyway, the Zartan, which I'm glad you brought up Spirit in that one, and Storm Shadow kind of having a one-on-one personal conflict, that's a perfect example of the comic and the cartoon being very different. Because as we saw, I want to say in the Funhouse one too, one of the other ones, Spirit and Storm Shadow kind of go at it again, because that was kind of the...
Dynamic.
Yeah, that was kind
Sexual tension.
of... Right.
Exactly.
That was the dynamic on the cartoon, but in the comic, it's Snake Eyes and Storm Shadow. In fact, they're part of the same ninja clan, but they've gone separate ways. So, it's just an example of how the comic and the cartoons were not much at all alike. Yeah, basically separate entities.
Again, like, for the 80s, it's good that they tried. It's just that did not age well to, like, current times, and, like, I hope that we have better representation now, and, like...
I mean, when you... As
stuff
Maya Angelou said, when you know better, you do better.
And I think,
as we continue to grow as people and listen to, underrepresented voices and things like that, we will all continue to try and do better.
And you start to actually research and learn about other cultures instead of just, well, Indians are...
X, Y, Z.
They're medicine men, and they can communicate with the spirits, and and if you don't go off of those generic stereotypes that were told to us during the cowboy era, Tonto and that kind of thing.
I was pretty happy when we started watching.
Right, that's true.
I was pretty happy when we started watching, and I saw like a bunch of people from different races, and it wasn't just bunch of white guys and the only black guy wasn't a driver, unlike Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that's true.
That actually got me kind of like okay, what?
And I mean, some of them were there from the start. One of the first Joes was Stalker, and he was a black character, and he was G.I. Joe, or he was Snake Eye's right-hand man during the Vietnam War. So I mean, there was a lot of, right from the start, G.I. Joe tried to be more diverse. Not saying it was perfect, again.
No, but
they tried.
Again, effort was there.
And, especially for the 1980s, especially the early 1980s, for a toy line to have a black character like that, pretty rare.
Also a Native American character.
Because
that was definitely...
That did not happen. That was not a thing. Unless it was the Lone Ranger toy line.
Oh, no!
But, I mean, you're right. They tried.
They did try, and honestly, I do give them a little, some props for trying, because then... it got people to go okay, this is the type of representation that is trying but not trying enough.
More importantly, it showed that it could be done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's as crazy as that sounds. Just having a Native American character that wasn't Tonto was a huge thing.
And it also did bring attention more into... I'm not saying that it was groundbreaking or that it really did change, but it did bring attention to that to add Native American characters into media, and this is the representation that we could add more. Unfortunately, I haven't seen much of that in recent years, but hopefully in the future we'll see more of that and see more of that representation. But at least that character was there at the time.
Yeah, I mean, for any Native American kids in the 1980s, he was the only character that wasn't Tonto. I mean, they had Brave Star later on, but I don't remember. Well, I guess Brave Star might have been Native American. I don't remember, but
the other thing is though is we could be forgetting about someone just because where you grew up was a limited television compared to even where I was. Yeah. But
it's not coming to anything though, as far as Native Americans.
Yeah, I know.
And unfortunately, in the 1980s, if you were Asian, you knew karate. On television.
On television.
You knew karate. Characters. You were a ninja. You were the math guy. I mean, the typical stereotypes.
They're still trying to break stereotypes in media today.
Which is why, we're also very lucky to have social media where people who are Native American, who have Asian descent, who are black, can, or people of color can say, okay, this is the type of representation that can be harmful. Here's some good representation. Here is something that we would like to see in media, like to see out in TV shows and movies and comics and whatever.
Well, and more importantly, they can say when it's not good representation. Yeah. I mean, that's the death of Apu.
Well, and when you have a large following on social media, you have more of an opportunity for that to echo farther.
For sure.
So... I
mean, how many years did The Simpsons have Apu without anyone complaining as far as we knew? Not saying it didn't happen.
Yeah. It absolutely happened.
But it wasn't until social media.
It definitely went in waves. But then you're right. It took social media, and it took a lot of all the outcry at once.
Yes.
For it
focused
to change.
Yeah. And I mean, I think if you were to release G.I. Joe as it was today, I think you'd get a lot of that pushback again.
Oh,
Absolutely.
yes,
You know?
definitely.
We got pushback in our own living room. I mean, come
That's
on.
true. Yeah. That's very true. That's very true.
As soon as I heard that his name was Spirit and
Yeah.
that he had what they said in the show, a special connection to the eagle, I'm just
Yeah.
like, no, I'm done.
Yeah.
No, that's not how you do. You gotta listen to the people. You gotta not
Kind of wanted him to strangle the eagle while making unwavering eye contact to the camera. Just kind of like,
All right.
there's a PSA, Joe.
I guess that's a good segue. Let's go into the PSAs.
Yes.
We did
Oh my
watch a handful of the PSAs. There were a lot of them, so we didn't watch every single one. But those were tacked on to the end of the show just so that the production could say, well, we're not just a toy advertisement. We're also an educational program.
We're quirky.
But once again...
But here's the thing. Those PSAs, they went a step farther in culture. You say you can say the Viper is coming to anybody your age.
But
you can say, and now you know.
And the response is going to be almost as though you're in church.
Yes.
Would be, and knowing is half the battle.
And that's even like, again,
Yeah.
I did not watch it growing up, but I knew that. Because
Yeah.
I want to say, at least here, the PSAs were not just tacked on to the end.
No,
I want to say, I want to say that some places aired them like in between cartoons.
Oh,
Like
you mean
just
almost
the
like
PSA,
bumpers.
Almost like bumpers, but just the PSA part.
That may be, but not where I was.
Right.
Not in my 4-channel
Correct.
country living.
Correct.
Okay. That may be. That would not surprise me, I guess. That makes sense.
Yeah.
The PSAs were interesting because of course since they had such a short amount of time, they had to get to the problem and then the solution very, very,
Very
quickly.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times you would see people making really dumb mistakes that you could laugh at and just know that they were trying to get there.
Basically.
Yeah.
It's absolutely, ooh,
no,
I dropped this. Who will help me?
I caught on fire.
Yeah,
I've fallen and can't get up.
Yeah, let's talk about the fact that one kid catches on fire and then strange man comes out of the woods.
And that's where we get into the Fensler, the parodies that we watched as well. Because it is a weird, just brain space to do exactly what you're saying. There's these two kids camping in the woods, and then suddenly there's this guy coming out of the woods.
Well, yeah, that's what it is. It's taking.
Were you there the whole time, Spirit?
It's not taking the PSA at face value, which is what we did growing up. It's like, oh yeah, stop, drop, and roll. Thanks for telling me.
Yeah.
And now instead it's like, were you watching?
Yeah.
Where did you come from?
Yeah, it was very weird.
I kind of like to imagine that as soon as he helps the kid, he kind of just slowly creeps back in the bushes.
Homer just
no,
backs
he was a
up
Native
in
American.
face.
He turned into a
stop.
No, don't you
He
dare.
turned into an
Not
eagle
even
and
don't
flew
you
away.
even
dare.
Or a
We
coyote
don't
and ran
know.
back into the woods.
Absolutely
No.
not.
No.
Okay.
Spirit is disappointed in you, and I want you to know that.
Yes. I'm disappointed in you at this point.
So yes, the PSAs were a huge influence on an entire generation, even as goofy as they were. And a lot of other shows followed their lead. He-Man had PSAs at the end. Brave Star had PSAs.
He-Man's about steroid usage?
It should have been.
Right?
It should have been.
Or how not to get a bargain basement haircut?
But, and when we get to these shows, we'll be sure to watch the PSAs, because that's a big part of that era of television, for better or worse.
Oh, absolutely.
Mostly worse.
Absolutely, because it's the whole,
It's the justification.
Well, it's also a little bit of the, TV raising the kids thing.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes. Gotta make sure it's all... We're not feeding them complete junk.
Right.
The producers were basically just like, guns, explosions, stop, drop, and roll, kids.
Yep.
Guns, explosions.
That's
That's basically the entire show.
It was. Buy this toy, sold separately. Yeah, I mean, that was exactly what it was. And then,
Listen to Snow Job.
yeah.
whole show was a snow job.
And then, of course, there were the parody PSAs, which were touchstones of the
Which
early
are
internet.
just, art.
Yeah.
They are art.
Yes, pork chop sandwiches.
Masterpiece.
Yeah.
Body massage.
That's right.
So,
Please go look those up.
yeah,
And
I'll have links to those.
giggle.
Oh,
I'll have links to those on the
please
show
do.
notes on the
They're
website.
They're so
Even if
amazing.
you've seen them before, watch them again.
They are
because
totally worth watching.
They really
Yes.
are.
It's it's what bad lip reading later became.
That's
basically.
absolutely
Same thing,
very true. Yeah.
Bad dubs.
I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else you guys want to talk about? I mean, I
think
realize
we've hit it all. But here's the surprising thing is because it's so camp and over the top. I'd totally watch more of it.
really.
Absolutely.
Oh, that does surprise me.
Absolutely.
I would watch more of it just to make fun of it.
Exactly.
To
That's
be
what
honest.
Mom's doing. Yeah.
It's just like, this is ridiculous. Let's watch it.
I would watch it in that vein now. You know,
As an adult.
Yeah. If I were to sit down and be like, well, in fact, I did. Back when they first hit DVD, I was, on Netflix and I was getting DVDs, and I got the first disc, and I sat down with it thinking, this was the greatest cartoon ever.
Knight Rider syndrome.
And yes, it was Knight Rider syndrome, which is my phrase for whenever you love something as a kid and then sit down and watch it as an adult and it does not hold up. Which is much like the television show Knight Rider. I sat down and I watched the first few episodes and I was like, this is the worst thing ever. You know, I was expecting a serious drama, and
instead you got
it is not.
Village People animated.
Yes. So, I mean, I would again watch it with tongue firmly planted in cheek, but I just...
Is that a snow job?
All right, I think we're done, folks.
Anyways, listeners, remember the Viper is coming.
But I could not sit down and watch this seriously anymore.
Yeah, me neither.
And you know what's crazy to me is there are a lot of guys my age who do, and I think if you're an adult and you watch G.I. Joe and you enjoy it as you did when you were a kid, I'm envious of you in a lot of ways. But for me, it's a total MST3K type situation.
Let's sit down. And
Let's kind of poke fun at it.
Let's sit down and have a laugh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We don't have time for a movie, but let's sit down and make fun of some G.I. Joe.
It's a cheesy 1980s throwback, and I mean, it is a snapshot of the times. Oh my God. It is insane how much that captures the early to mid 80s.
Honestly, like, the fact that, like, you're able to just laugh at a show that you knew was problematic is good growth. Like, that's something that's...
But we didn't know it was problematic.
Yeah, but now that you're an
Now
adult
we do,
and
yes.
you understand that it was problematic,
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
you... That's
it's
a good
just growing
sign
as a
of
person.
growth.
Right. Well, I also didn't know any better when I was 8.
True.
So...
Once we start rewatching some of my cartoons, I might start realizing some things. I'm just like, wait a minute.
Yeah, I mean, things have improved since you were little, too,
Yeah.
you know? So, okay, so I'm amazed that you all would actually watch more of it. Again, I think that's pretty...
Total camp.
It's pretty hilarious.
Of course, we
awesome.
can't miss Snow Job's presentation.
That's two words that don't ever need to be strung together again. You know what?
I know.
With
That's
that,
why
I'm
I said
outta
it.
here.
That's why I
Peace
said
out.
it.
I don't want to hear about the snow job.
The Snow Job presentation sounds like a emo band or something.
Or
Prog rock,
a
maybe?
site. Or a site and site.
Yeah, prog rock or porn site. It's our new game.
Risky Click.
Risky Click. Yeah.
Anyway, go to Urban Dictionary.
Airtight snow job. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
All right, seriously though, thank you for listening. I hope this was fairly entertaining as it was for us. Next time we'll be back with Andrea's pick. She has not decided what she's going to watch yet, so it'll be kind of a surprise for everyone. But we'll be back soon. Thanks a lot, folks.
The Viper's coming.
What the hell?
Bottom massage. G.I. Joe!